how, especially with most guard, right? Most of your guards, you're gonna think like, oh, well, you have your standard issue las gun, right? And this one is just a pattern, one pattern of many. But
Hello, welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion. Raptor's still enjoying himself with some beers and some friends, but with that being said, we are here joined by our wonderful guest.
hi, I'm Foxtrot 508.
Oh, well, thank you very much for joining us, Foxtrot. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to sit down and hear your tale. We'll just start with what are you known for, what got you started, and what got you into VRChat?
Well, what I'm known for is I'm the leader of the DeathKorps VR. The DeathKorps VR is one of the Warhammer 40K PvP groups that existed in VRChat since about 2018.
Oh, wow. So what pulled you into VRChat and how did the Death Corps become a thing?
Well, uh, when I first started VRChat, this kind of like 2018 when everybody was into the Ugandan Knuckles meme. So I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and try VRChat. And previous to that, I had really only known anything really small about Warhammer until when I was running around with some friends that I had made, and I was using a General Wolf Brigade avatar at the time. And someone had said, who was a Space Marines inside of the Great Pug, like, that's a weird looking Death Corps Krieg guardsman. Previous to that, I didn't even know what the Krieg was. I had known about Warhammer. I liked the Imperial Guard. I'd seen the Cadians, and so I was like, huh, what's a Death Corps Krieg guardsman? Went ahead and looked it up, and I was like, hmm, I really like the aesthetic, especially from a historical standpoint. I'm a big history buff, so liking something like that is like, wow. It just kind of came natural, especially with the World War One aesthetic of what Krieg is. So from there, it went from a friend group and evolved into something much more years later.
Okay. So, what were the friend group days like of the Krieg, and how has your events and what you've done evolved into what you do with BVP now?
From the friend group days, it's just evolved from hanging out and yeah, the 40K was very different back then. It was just mostly hanging out, talking about Krieg, learning more about the lore. Um, Eventually, it went from using the Dawn of War 2 models that various other model creators who had moved on a long time ago had made, and then I said, you know what? I want something to look a little bit more um, up to date.
Hmm.
Because Dawn of War 2's models is an RTS game, so the RTS game models were low poly. So when we were developing the Krieg, I said, you know what? There's some assets I've got from different various places, like Gary's Mod or some other games that I had that I said, you know what? These would look good as Krieg. And over time, when we went from a friend group to when the PvP system that Go Fluff Yourself had made first came onto the scene, we said, hey, you know, it'd be really cool is if we started shooting each other along with like the Blood Ravens, the other 40K groups that came after that. Then we just started to participate in events with them, and then the popularity of Krieg grew, especially after more recent years when Krieg actually came into the spotlight for Games Workshop, and as well as just updates and the newer model lines came out. Then Krieg became more popular as it became more mainstream.
Oh, so once the system that Go Fluff Yourself came out, what were some of the first PvP events like, and who did you collaborate with? What were you guys' thoughts of that change in dynamic from what like hanging out, learning lore to PvP?
One of the first groups we did PvP with was the Blood Ravens, And the Blood Ravens, the Salamanders, the Mechanicus were really big groups that we had done PvP with at first. You might hear the leader of the Blood Ravens, Flying Flapjack. He'll say, basically, we brought airsoft into VRChat, and it just kind of took off from there. So basically, that was it. So along with the lore and learning about Krieg and everything else, then we started to see other groups pop up, and we started to, do events with them, and it was fun because it's like, wow, now we're able to do these big scale battles and these big, fights between space marines and guardsmen and other alien races from 40K that, you would think, oh wow, it's only on the tabletop or on the RTS or some other games that you would be able to play. But now it's like we can actually fight them, you know, and have fun amongst each other.
Hmm. So I remember there's a PvP group we talked to a long time ago, which was the Daleks, and I remember they told us a crazy
Hmm.
story where they were facing off. I think it was it was United they were facing off, and the giant ship came in and someone nuked it. One of the Daleks dropped a nuke or something on it. It was crazy. Do you have any stories like that, or any memorable moments from within Krieg or PvP battles that you remember that have stuck with you? Doesn't have to be crazy,
Hmm.
but memorable.
There was a lot of crazy but memorable battles that we had. I think the when we used to have community wars, because the 40K community would have a lot of big event battles that would happen, and so later on, when the communities would get together and have these community wars, and we'd have the different factions versus each other. And it was a while, but it was a little bit towards the middle when I first was trying to get better at doing particles for our models. When we'd had the community war, everybody is kind of like an arms race, so everybody wants to get the best units and everything. And when tanks and Titan battles came on the scene, those were the crazy days because then we started using artillery, and there was this really just big battles, especially when they did have Titans involved. So now you're thinking, okay, we went from skirmishes and infantry to infantry battle to now, oh man, there's tanks on the field, and now we have to deal with tanks. And then it got bigger and bigger, and then it's like, oh man, there's a knight on the field. Now we have to deal with a knight on the field, and then the scale just gets larger and grander. And we used to fight. Sometimes we'd have infantry versus tanks and infantry versus titans on a really old map. It was called Last Stand. This big giant map, and along with the tanks, then people started to develop flyers, and so one of those battles, we were running out into the field, and me and a whole nother squad of Krieg guardsmen were running, and we see the aircraft coming down, and these orcs flyers are strafing us, and we're running, and we're trying to set up defenses. The Mechanicus is coming from another side, and then we see off in the distance the Titans blasting away at each other, as well as our own tanks rolling in and firing artillery over into the center point where another faction's Titans were, and you could just see this giant battle going on. And if you were in the way, you got vaporized, basically. And being at the front line of that, I was like, man, I can truly appreciate and see why it's scary to be a guardsman in the Warhammer 40K universe.
So I'm gonna seem a little, a little dumb. I've seen only a couple of grandiose Warhammer lore with giant machines and stuff. What were some of those machines that you mentioned, like the Titans, the Mechanicus, the Knight? What are they, and how has from when you first started? What kind of things came out with with your roleplay group that has changed battle? What was it like seeing the new things come out?
Okay. For knights. Well, we'll start with the smaller scale. So tanks, of course, tanks are self-explanatory. When you see a tank, it's like, all right, armor, bigger guns, meant to push and punch through lines. You know, you see that. But as it got bigger, I'd say a knight is more akin to, let's say, that's a good example. Maybe perhaps like a Titanfall Titan,
Okay.
something of that scale, something that big that now instead of just being a tank with treads, now you have a tank with legs, and it's a lot bigger and it can move more in a humanoid fashion or more as like a mech than say a tank. And then so that's already kind of scary in itself, especially just being a regular just human on the ground like, oh, well, now I have to fight armor that walks and can possibly have shields as well. And then on the grander scale above that, fighting a Titan is like fighting. Hmm, I'd say Titans are self-explanatory. They're really big. It's like fighting a entire 20-story building with guns.
Oh no.
But even and then that 20-story building also can become bigger than 20 stories, and it can get up to 50 stories, 100 stories high, and the guns just get bigger. So now it's like, all right, now we're gonna need a combined force of tanks or anything else that's really big to try and fight this thing that can just obliterate you in one shot because that's what they're meant to do. They're meant to just wipe out swaths of armies. So again, it's really scale changing when you're like on the ground and you see this giant fortress like a monastery wielding giant with a giant church on its back, just pointing the giant cannon at you and just blowing everything out in front of you. It's insane. But that changed everything from when it was just normal scaled combat to just being like you and me right here to wow, how am I gonna deal with that?
What was it like seeing some of those giant machines for the first time, like a knight or the giant titans or mechanics? What was it like seeing that on the field for the very first time? What was it like?
It was pretty exciting. Scary, but to me it was pretty exciting because like wow, now I get to fight that. I was like, in the typical Krieg fashion, because people always make jokes about the Kriegsmen. Small bit of lore is, because they're really loyal and they do a lot of sacrifice, and any action they do is um any action they do is to the bitter end. So it's like they'll fight to the very end, no matter what it is. So it really puts into that joke of, yeah, a Krieg guardsman will take out his shovel or bayonet and charge at this giant machine just because you told him to.
Oh
Which
wow.
is what we we had done. We were like fighting giant buildings with bayonets and shovels if we weren't doing anything else with, artillery or big guns.
I can only imagine from an outside perspective that must be ridiculous watching a bunch of footmen kind of run out with shovels to attack a building with legs.
Yeah, it is, but it's funny when it does happen. I mean, it's the same thing with Space Marines. It's like there are these 2-ton genetically altered giants, and here's this small regular human dude trying to come in and whack him with shovels and bayonets and trying to shoot him with laser guns that'll just bounce off them.
Oh. So what have been some of your favorite or let's start with this. How many events what kind and how many events have you done over the years? What ones are still around, what ones are no longer around? I'd love to hear the history of the kind of things the Freak has been up to.
Well, events. Well, as far as events, we would do small skirmishes. Well, throughout the years, it went from the bigger grand battles down to just smaller events as time went on. Mostly due to time constraints, but the community battles haven't really had those in a couple years. So we just started doing more smaller scale battles, and it's basically whatever community you want to go ahead and fight or have a event with, you go ahead and ask, just consideration to ask them and be like, okay, well, do you want to do a battle? Okay, we'll plan it for this day, and we'll go ahead and schedule that and go ahead and do the event with them. As far as roleplay goes, the role plays that we do are not too serious. It's more like an open role play, but it's being within Krieg. So things that can be goofy or funny can happen in comparison to like maybe a stricter role play where we will have to go ahead and be like, all right, this is how it is within the lore. So go ahead and act accordingly, which is mostly going to be, most Krieg guardsmen are not really emotional, or they're gonna, will just basically be just your normal standard gas mask guys who don't really say nothing unless ordered to.
Okay.
But yeah.
Oh, so I have a question. What has happened during
Mm.
your social role plays versus your PvP events? What have been some memorable things that happened through that? And is there anything that happens in their canon, at least within your universe anyway?
Mm, well, within the role plays compared to PvP, the role plays, as far as canon goes, no, nothing's really canon with us because it's still just a fan group at the end of the day. But it is fun to see the interactions that everybody has with each other, especially when role plays are on. Memorable ones is going on patrols, like when we did do a role play where there was a bunch of us going on a patrol down this beach map. I believe it's a Half-Life map that's for role plays. But yeah, we were going down this beach, and the objective was to hold and capture some areas from other enemy forces. You really get to see, the interaction between all the different people that we have. You'll have some guys joking, you'll have some guys not joking. Uh, Especially when the jump scare surprise that we did with one of the guardsmen happened, then everybody starts, going from serious mode and they just turn and they start blasting in one direction. They're like, "Oh, what was that?" They're like, "Did you guys see that?" And they're like, "No, we didn't see anything." And then another like monster we had, somebody role playing jumps out at them again and turns invisible, and they're like, "Ah!" And they start shooting in every direction. Or um, seeing people try and role play like, okay, we're gonna go capture this house, and then our tank suddenly turns his turret to the house and shoots around into it and blows it up, and it's just like we're supposed to capture the house, not blow it up. And the tank's like, he looks down and says, "Oh, I'm sorry," all sad. It's really funny when those interactions happen when it's outside of PvP. Roleplay is fun, but even within PvP, it's the same thing too. Especially some of the friendships and bonds that people have made, and just having a good time,
Oh,
especially when fighting other people too.
okay. So I have another question for you as well. What is the Krieg and how
Hmm.
they differ from the other factions of the Warhammer 40K universe?
All right, I tell this to everybody. You want the TLDR version, or do you want to sit here for an hour?
We're a podcast meant to have you talk. I'd love to hear the entire spiel. Give it to me. I want the lore.
Oh, I was about to say, oh boy, hopefully I can pack it all in. But
There's no
um,
time limit. Don't worry about it. We want you to share the entire story. We'd love to hear everything about you and your group. Don't worry about if you spend an hour talking about
mhm.
lore or something silly. We'd love to hear all of it. If it's important to you, it's important to us.
All right, all right. I may get a few things wrong, but basically, I'll give the breakdown for at least the Imperial Guard. So for Warhammer 40K, the Imperial Guard, or the Astra Militarum, is, humanity's standard issue army that's not modified. So unlike the Space Marines, who are genetically modified super soldiers, right? They're more of a rarity compared to the Astra Militarum, or the Guard.
Mm.
Billions, I mean, millions of worlds, billions and billions and trillions of people to use for an army. and especially with the Imperium of Man being a empire that requires tithes, so payments, right, from other planets. Usually it's within resources. What's your greatest resource? People. So a lot of these worlds give tithes to the Imperium, soldiers being one of them. Your standard Krieg differs from your standard Imperium soldiers like the Cadians.
Mm.
The Cadian Shock Troop is another regiment. They're your standard issues guys that you'll see on a lot of the art for the Imperial Guard. Like your normal space troopers, they got the las guns. They're on the front line defending everything. But Krieg is uh, is different. It's because within the Astra Militarum and the Imperial Guard, different regiments have different quirks about them. So Cadians are your just like the Ultramarines in Warhammer. They're your all-arounders. They are good for any situation. You can throw them in. They can adapt and change with whatever environment they're in. Same thing with the another guard regiment is the Catachan Jungle Fighters. Born on a hell world, even though it's a jungle, that jungle wants to eat everything, whether it's the plants or the animals. It wants to eat you, so it grazes really strong guys who are adept to jungle fighting. They're basically space Rambos if you look at them. They've got the bandanas, they got big muscles. They're shooting guns with one hand and whatnot. Another example is the Talaran Desert Raiders, guys bred for desert warfare because they were raised on a world that used to be a paradise, but now it's a desert world. So now their whole thing is hit and run tactics, knowing how to use the sand, stuff like that. But for Krieg was their home planet was a pretty big manufacturing world. So it wasn't too bad off, right? You had a pretty alright economy and stable, but with Krieg, their planets to say aristocrats, but their planet's leadership wanted to secede from the Imperium of Man.
Mm.
And so there was a civil war on the planet. For the most part, the separatists took most of the planet. The last remaining loyalist general was holding out in one city in particular.
Mm.
And in 40K there's hive cities, and the hive cities are these big, like, giant cities that are just stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks from the lowest bottom point to the highest tower. Just this big giant city where multitudes of probably millions or billions of people live. But basically, last city was holding out against the separatists, and a one last loyalist, his name was Colonel Yurton, basically was holding out in the city. They retreated down underneath the city, and under the city there were weapons, nuclear weapons. So in the end, if the Imperium couldn't have Krieg, nobody could have Krieg. So they launched all the after getting the go ahead, basically launched all the nukes into the air, launched and onto the world, and the entire planet was nuked, pretty much. Now that's not where everything ends. That's the funny thing, because Krieg is a manufacturing world as well as a lot of things are underground. Now the real development point begins, because then the planet still is you still have the separatists versus the loyalists, and so now a 500-year war begins of just attrition. So it's trench warfare on the surface on an irradiated planet. You can only go up at minutes at a time, and swaths of guys are dying. And you're probably wondering, well, if they're the loyal,
Oh,
they're like, ooh,
I found your seats. Oh, hold on.
oh yeah, sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry. It's fine. I'm the one who clicked when I was messing with the camera.
It's all good. But yeah, so you're wondering like, okay, well, how are all these guys like still fighting after 500 years? It's like, well, underneath the ground, you have the manufacturing, you also have people still living, but Krieg is different from other regiments too because much like the well, it's kind of a comparison, but much like the clones from Star Wars,
Hmm.
they have this thing called a Vita womb. So basically, most Krieg soldiers you see are test tube babies. So
Ah.
they just pump them out. But the 500-year war just kept going on this planet, and so this is 500 years later. The Imperium's like, well, we haven't heard from these guys in a while. Let's go back and check on them and see what's going on. And so once the Imperium and the Imperial forces come back, they're like, hey, you guys haven't been here giving us your ties for a while. We're gonna need about 10, let's say 10,000 regiments ready by this deadline for, we come in and invade the world. They didn't get a response for a while, but when they did get the response, they're like, well, all right, you need 10,000 regiments. How about 20? It's like, what do you mean, how about 20? Yeah, and this is also a meme too. It's like, what did you say? What did you say? It's like, wait, did you say 20? What did you say 50? Yeah, we can get you 50. It's like, no, we only needed 10. You mean 100? We could give you 100 because once they finally saw, like, oh wow, these guys they literally can give us, you know, more than we bargained for. Then Krieg became kind of indispensable because it's like, wow, if we can't get all these other guys to give us stuff, well, at least we know we have a good supply of soldiers here. And especially with Krieg developing over time, it went from being like okay, like before we're just in a world under the Imperium to now it's a world of zealous sacrifice because
Mhm.
their whole thing with Krieg is, they're trying every action they do is to make up for their transgressions against the Imperium and the Emperor. Because the Imperium is a kind of cult, so it's just like, well, I guess we'll die for the Emperor so he can forgive us, instead of us, having these sins on top of us. So
Mm.
they're really like extreme in that belief. And that's why when you compare them to other guardsmen, people wonder and they're like, wow, you guys are like must be very you know, so when you guys are trying to do stuff. So it's like, yeah, that's their whole thing. It's like if I even if it's a little action, say they're going against a Chaos Space Marine, this big, again, super soldiers, but now they're enhanced by dark gods and beings. It's like even if it seems like they're not gonna win, they're gonna do it anyway because any action, at least to make up for all of that 500 years of transgressions, is
Mm.
in their blood and in their basically part of their being. And then that also kind of rubs the other guard regiments the wrong way because it's like, wow, you guys are a bunch of like really extreme guys. It's just like that's just their whole thing.
Hmm. Wow. Well, thank you for the explanation. I very much appreciate learning about them. So,
Yeah.
what draws you to them to play and role play as the Krieg for this long? What about them sits with you?
Um, I think it's funny.
You think it's
That's
funny?
why. I think it's funny. Okay, if you really think about it, right? This galactic empire in space, and this is like 40,000 years into the future, right? To futuristic like technology, all this other stuff, aliens that are supposed to be more advanced, or they're like ancient empires that have like stayed around for eons compared to the Imperium. They're doing World War I trench warfare in space, and it's working. It's working. It's not that it's oh yeah no it's like the looks and everything. That's another thing. I really just like the look and the lore behind them because again I'm a history guy, so I do like the Industrial Revolution period all the way up to like current day. But World War I sticks with me a lot because in school I really liked learning about not only just what happened within the world war, especially World War I, but also the way that technology had developed at that time. The change of culture too that went from standing in lines and marching towards the enemy to now, uh-oh, we can't do that anymore because there's a new gun that can just mow everything down, or horse charges can't do that anymore. Artillery gets better, guns get better, everything gets better. Well, at least on that front before, and then just the historical references, like here, if I'm allowed to change,
Oh,
let me
go for it.
just try to switch to the normal.
Feel free to
Uh,
change to
uh,
whatever avatar makes you happy.
Let me just go ahead and this. Yeah. So like when you look at your typical DeathKorps Krieg guardsman, um, of course the first striking thing that you'll see is the helmet as well as the gas mask. Gas mask definitely based on the German gas masks of World War One, but also the tube and the box is more so kind of a reference to the gas masks of the British in World War One as well. The helmet is a combination of a French Brody helmet as well as the German Stahlhelm. So there's a lot of that connection to, the that aspect of it, as well as the I think if I remember correctly, the shoulder plates, even though like it's kind of insignificant, are of kind of reference to the Italian like armor that some of the or even some of the other armor plates that they had worn in World War One. And then the coat, the biggest aspect, the coat is actually a French World War One coat. That's
Mm.
why it has like the two sides as well as it's got the two buttons. What is it called? The double pleated, or I can't really remember the terminology right now. But yeah, the coat itself is French,
Mm.
definitively French, especially with the leg wrappings, the putties. That's definitely a World War One staple.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, and then that's just why I like them because again, it's funny to me because all it's just World War One in space. Like as if there wasn't enough references to past like tactics and whatnot that the Imperial Guard does, especially with the throwing mass amounts of people at a wall until it works. Krieg is definitely an embodiment of that, of a lot of that history, and it's
Mm.
just funny to me that they're fighting aliens and dark gods and demons and other things in space with these same tactics, and it's working out for them somehow.
Mm. I do have one question based upon that. Some of the things you mentioned. How does the Krieg having
Hmm.
such technology from like, as you alluded to, like World War One tech, how are they facing against space marines and giant machines? Like, how do they stand up to them? Are you enjoying the episode you're watching so far? Then feel free to check out the rest of the stuff we have over here in the Metaverse Degen network. We have other interviews from everyone from VRChat staff to VCAT and PGKT. We talked with world builders and creators. So if you want to learn more about VR and VRChat, check it out. Also, we have a actual play podcast, Hold My L, which honestly we're just a bunch of idiots rolling dice. So if you like that kind of thing, feel free to come hang out with us over there. And if you should find any of their socials and stuff, so you can go on metaversedegen.card.co. Over on Patreon, we actually started putting the pre-show content for Hold My Ale, which like we talk about before the show, and as we all kind of start funneling into the world, getting ready. So if you want to go see that as well, feel free to go to our Patreon, which if a few people already subscribed, we'd like to give a special thanks to Frozen, Future Oracle, Aliquum, Niche, and Forbidden Zero. Thank you very much. Funny little hint, Forbidden Zero is also the DM.
Well, see, that's the one good thing. That's a good question. How, especially with most guard, right? Most of your guards, you're gonna think like, oh, well, you have your standard issue las gun, right? And this one is just a pattern, one pattern of many. But with the way the guard, as well as just Krieg deals with like things with that in general, like your different enemies. Let's say a Space Marine. Space Marines, yeah, they're big and tough. There's a lot of armor to punch through, but at least from a lore-wise standpoint, anything you can shoot like their joints or the eyes or like any weak points, then you aim for that. And then especially with the uh, amounts and amounts of guard, like amount of soldiers. Like yeah, two guys or one guy shooting one space marine in one place is like just shooting an airsoft pellet at a tank, right?
Yeah.
But if you have 10,000 guys with all aiming at a small point. And let's say the airsoft is really a bad example, but if you have about 10,000 guys shooting at that same, you know, same guy with hitting all the different joints and all the different parts of it with like with enough time and enough whittling down, he's done. But then again, the Imperial Guard as well as the Krieg are also just like any army. It's like, all right, if that's not working, then we got bigger stuff. Your typical like rocket launchers, anti-armor, like grenades and tanks and whatnot, and bigger, heavier guns and turrets to deal with different kinds of uh, threats or like different levels of enemies that you fight.
Oh.
That's usually how they do it.
So it's a numbers
And
game,
then with
basically.
yeah, it's a numbers game.
Hmm. Okay. So within your group, do you guys make your own models? How have they changed over the years? Like from what you guys first started using to over time?
Um, I've been the primary model maker all this time. From before, it used to be just for decoration and show. The very first models, I think I still have my very first updated model that I did a long time ago. It didn't have anything on it. It was just basically like, all right, can we make it look good? Does it function? Yeah, it looks good. Just like here, let me put this up. This would be the I keep it for the archives, but yeah, this is the very first DeathKorps model that I made.
Oh wow.
It has nothing on it other than dances because at the time I didn't know anything about doing particles. But yeah, no, this was the very first model that I made back in about 2018, late 2018, 2019.
Oh
And
wow.
very it's very much simple. I can't even pull the gun off of my back. But over time, then as I learned more about Unity and a lot of the other things like doing particles and animations, then became version 2 and 3, which then I could actually, if it loads.
Packing. There you are. You're here.
Yeah. And then especially too because I did a lot of kit bashing, especially because the las guns for Krieg specific didn't exist. I took different parts from different guns and whatnot, and then now I could finally take the gun off my back. I could finally shoot it. It had sounds and whatnot. This is another really old archived one, but I can't even aim easy with this one because it was just back then. It was like whatever, just hit fire it. Don't worry about it. Oop,
Oh.
whoops, sorry. I clicked my own seat too.
You wanted to sit in my lap. You should have just bought me a drink first. We're at a bar. I'm
I think
sorry.
the missus would be very mad.
Don't worry. Mine would too.
But yeah, but yeah, and then over time after that, I just kept basically developing them until what they are now, and then especially with the first versions of the more modern Krieg models, they were Source Filmmakers models, so I had to do a lot of work, a lot of tweaking to fix it up and make it more optimized for VRChat. And even then, after I had a pretty good base because the base models that we use for the source that were from the Source Filmmaker, everybody's seen the animations on YouTube. They have like the ones from Sodaz, the DeathKorps Krieg animation Source Filmmaker animator who made the 40K one, where they had Krieg in it, or the other what is the other guy? What is his name? Um, there's another animator. He also made a Krieg animation, but we were using those base models. But I wanted to make it more closer to lore as well as closer to being more accurate. So I would swap out pieces for other pieces. These helmets and these shoulder pads are from another model maker slash animator. His name is Janovich. Uh, who she has like free models that he had made for like his own Krieg animations and whatnot. So I was like, okay, well, those pads look better than these pads. I'll switch out those pads for these pads. So that helmet looks better than this helmet, and it looks more closer to the model on the tabletop. And I basically just started kit bashing and swapping, and that's one thing with the model I liked about model making for Krieg as well as just in general, doing models for VRChat is I'm a kit basher, so I like to uh, take the different parts and make something that looks good with it. And right now, with the current version, that's what it is.
Oh wow. So what made you want to start working in Unity and make the models, and what motivated you to keep on learning?
Um, Mostly wanting better models, and also just wanting to push the boundaries of what I could do. Because before, especially because I also used to do a lot of Source Filmmaker animations, I was like, oh wow, I want to learn this. I want to make some cool animations and whatnot. But then when that kind of fell off, I was like, man, I'm like, there's nothing really inspiring. But then when I did go to VRChat, I said, huh. And then I used to see other people's avatars as well. Like when I used to go to when the really old world, what is that, Gaia Night? I remember. Oop,
The seats.
I know. I'm sorry about the
Don't be.
seats.
It's okay. Makes it
But
fun.
yeah, it's a challenge. Well, yeah, no, but in the old days of VR chat, when I used to go to different worlds and I saw people's avatars, like I said, for example, like in Gaia Night, I remember seeing somebody's animation of them able to plop down this turret, and it was at this top of the top of the hill in the map, and then an animation of a ship came out, and said turret turns up and then fires at the ship, and the ship gets shot down and it crashes into the ground, and I'm like, wait, you can do stuff like that? And then I also used to see like other people's like before I learned how to do anything with weaponry in VR chat, I used to see people just kind of walk around with just, static posed like this, like, oh, okay, run around. And then you could do like an animation where it looks like you're shooting, but it's not shooting. And then later on, I'd see people then develop it more where there's actual firing. I'm like, I could do something with this. And I said, well, let me go ahead and learn Unity. And back then it was more difficult because there wasn't any real good like tutorials and whatnot or people to help you out. This is all like over time. I learned all of this through different people, friends who also were model makers, and just a lot of development of time. I mean, but yeah, it was just over time I really wanted to learn because I was like, you know what, that'd be cool. Then I could do this. I could make guns shoot. I could make I could pull out a shovel and whack somebody with it. Now I can, now I know how to do particles and stuff, and then like I can use grenades, and throw them over there, and oh, that's two of them. Whoops. Don't worry. Good thing that we don't have any the PvP system here. Or like now instead of, oh well, you have your standard camouflage, but now I can do stuff like make different camouflages for different environments and different things. And I was like, wow, I could do all of that. And it was just to have fun, really, and push the boundaries, but more so just to have fun and be like, oh, it's happening to me. But it was more so to was to push myself to learn something new, and over time it just became a hobby. Kind of like with the tabletop and with other things that I do for hobbies. I was like, you know what, this is a hobby. I'm having fun with it. It's fun. I'm gonna keep doing it. And it just kind of developed from there.
Oh, so I have two questions, but I'll stick with a more. I'll start with this one. What got you into the Warhammer tabletop? Did you do that before coming into VRChat, or was it VRChat that got you into that?
Um, I had always seen my brothers play it, but I had never done it myself because it wasn't really something I was into when I was younger. When I came into VR chat, that's when I truly started because I was like, huh, this is cool. Like, and then I just through learning through other people throughout the community, I was like, what? So that's what my brothers were doing? That's what the tabletop is? there's these kind of things on the tabletop, especially because I started with the regular Imperial Guard with Acadians. I was like, wow, I've always played Dawn of War, especially up until this point, and I was like, so this,
Sorry.
I don't worry. The next update to this map will make the toggle for seats. Let's get those out of here.
It's okay.
But yeah, no, I had seen it. I've always been around it, but I wasn't interested until after I had joined VRChat, and I was like, is this what I'm missing out on? This is cool, especially after 2020,
Mm.
especially being stuck inside. I was like, I have time. I can paint, and then it just kind of went from there, as well as just doing avatars. So
Mm.
yeah, it's kind of like all the way. It's always been there, but now I'm more interested in it before.
Mm. Now, I have some I had some friends in high school played. I'm asking another question. How much have you spent on miniatures for the tabletop?
Okay. Uh, hmm.
Is the answer yes?
The answer is yes.
I remember
The answer
hearing
is
him.
always going to be yes.
I remember hearing him talk about how much miniatures are, but he would pull out like his entire container of just paints and other stuff. He's like, I've been painting this and that and this and that, and I think he was in orcs at the time.
Oh yeah, then that's another big one too. They're a horde army, so there's going to be a lot.
You know,
Yeah, no,
are there
that's a
any
lot.
orc armies in VR chat?
There were, yeah, there are. I remember at least two. There's probably more out there. I don't know though. I haven't really seen them around as of late, but I remember fighting them. There were at least two orc armies that we fought, and then what else have we fought? We also fought Necrons, Eldar, Tau, of course, Chaos Space Marines and Cultists, regular Space Marines. Yeah, we basically fought the rainbow of the factions of 40K.
Okay. How many races and species are there in the Warhammer 40K universe? Because I'm not entirely familiar. I just know Space Marines and orcs.
It's all good. Let's see. So then there's, of course, you've got the Space Marines, Imperial Guard, the Sisters of Battle, the Tau, the Eldar, the Dark Eldar, the what was it, the Orcs, Necrons. We've seen Leagues of Votan. They're kind of a new race. They're like space dwarves. They've always had space dwarves, which is the squats, but these are the new guys, and instead of looking like your traditional dwarves, they're like super futuristic and they have more better technology than anything, kind of like that. And then who else is? And then there's the demons. There's about like 10, 12, 14-ish kind of like
Okay.
races you can play.
Okay.
But I think a lot of them though are also just sub factions of the main ones, but still, it's just like there's a
Hmm.
lot.
Hmm. So I have another question, kind of harping back into the avatar creation. What are some items in your
Mm.
toolkit for making the avatars for the Krieg, and how has your toolkit changed as you've gotten more experience?
Um, well, Blender is always the base. You
Mm.
always got to have Blender. All models start in Blender. Yeah, learning Blender was a big one, especially when you have model issues. Because importing models and having model issues in VRChat is always every creator's worst nightmare, because
Mm.
it's like, all right, it looks good here, and then you get it in and it's like, why does it look like that? Why is it inside out? Why is the helmet, or why is my mask transparent or whatnot? And then it's like, okay, well, gotta go back and see if the faces are the right way. And then in comparison, no, that's not in comparison, but in addition to that, then Photoshop, especially if you're doing texture work, like
Mm.
especially with like how I do the different camouflages and whatnot, all just different edits I've done in within Photoshop. Let's see. Uh, what else do I use? Um, for me, uh, was it a lot of conversion tools like a Gmod extractor where, if I do need something from Gary's mod that, that is something that's 40K related, I can port that out of Gary's mod or out of the Source Filmmaker assets, and then be able to convert that back from a source model to a FBX model so I can use that and like edit it how I need it to be.
Mm.
And then, I don't know, then you have generally just everything else like people will get all their models stuff from Sketchfab sometimes. So I was like, well, if I need a box, well, I know where to look. Or if I need like a barrel, I know where to look. Or any other of the other sites like maybe CG Trader, if you really want to pay for a model, that's free to use. But yeah, it's just over time it went from Blender up to Blender and Unity up to then Photoshop, and then it went to um, those other programs, and then just using a combination of all that just to make all of this.
Oh, wow. And another question based on something you said much earlier is that at one point you were doing Source
Mhm.
Filmmaker animations. What kind of animations were you doing, and what got you started into it?
Uh, well, what got me into Source Filmmaker is um, young me, middle school slash high school me in 2010 was watching YouTube. And there were a lot of people, especially since I used to play a lot of Team Fortress at the time. Then I was looking at like a lot of the update videos and whatnot, and then there's people who are like, "Oh yeah, no, here's the animation process of how they do it, and this is a readily available tool within the SDK." And I'm just like, really? Is that what that Source Filmmaker thing is in my Steam? Because I was just like, oh, whatever. They're like, it keeps advertising it. I'm just like, ah, whatever. But then as I seen videos and seen more amateur, well, back then more amateur videos that now a lot of them have become professionals, I was like, huh, I could do that. And again, it was mostly inspired to because I just was inspired to make something. Like I've always kind of liked art, and I've made art too as well, like traditional, pencil and paper. But ideas, it's because I wanted to put the ideas I had for like really cool like ideas like big battles or some other things that I wanted to do. Or I wanted to take it not just down to paper, but I wanted to put it into animation. So my earlier animations and things that I did were just like okay, like funny ha-has and like small little animation tests that I would do for certain projects that I had in mind. And then eventually it kind of developed to more just like how I did with here. It went from really looking blocky looking to like okay, it's looking more smooth. I learned
Mm.
how to do more in-depth like movements and how things should look when you're animating things. And that went up until about 2014, 2015,
Oh, wow.
and then I stopped for a little while before I started on VRChat in 2018.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you for sharing the tale. It's actually pretty awesome to hear. And another question I'll ask you as well is I remember hearing from the rave scene how much the rave scene changed during COVID. Was there an equal change in the role play and PvP scene during COVID as well?
Yeah. I can definitely say that there was a lot more people during the COVID times that were participating in PvP events and a lot of things that were going on, especially because more people were able to be inside. So yeah, I'd say we'd seen really the biggest time of just a lot of people being there during that time frame when COVID was going on.
Mm. Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for alluding to that. I appreciate it. Um,
Hmm.
well, I guess the last few questions before we start wrapping up. First of which is the name used in VR chat, why to use it, and where'd it come from?
Oh, my username,
Yeah.
Foxtrot. Well, simple. It's a military fanatic. Everybody can get it. It's just like Foxtrot 5. But the 508. it's a reference. Anybody who's played a lot of video games, have you ever heard of the Fear series,
No, I have not.
like
What is
of
it?
games? Okay. Fear, which was First Encounter Assault Recon, that was the first game was back in like 2004 or 3. But basically the plot is you're you're a government agent who's sent in to investigate the escape of a experimental commander. Because okay,
Mm.
let me try and tell you. All right, basically you have enhanced abilities. You can do slow mo basically. The agent you're playing as, it has skills, and that's why they picked him for this assignment. Long story short, this commander that went rogue is a psychic, and he is in control of psychically controlled soldiers and clones. And they're produced by this company that's called Armacam. Basically, your military contract kind of a evil corporation kind of guys, right?
Mm.
But their experiments are basically unethical. He's a part of those experiments. He's gone rogue because his mother, who is part of those experiments, he's gone rogue and a lot of the spooky things that happens because it's a horror. Let's like it's a horror FPS.
Mm.
So as you're going along and like through the missions, you're not only fighting these clones, but you're seeing a bunch of supernatural stuff happen. It's mostly because she was the original experiment, but even though she died, her psychic presence still lives on, and it's basically telling the the commander guy who is her son. Spoilers, you're also her son because you're another rejected experiment, is now causing havoc and mayhem. But in the second game, there's a DLC for that game, and you're playing as those clone soldiers, and so all of them are by designation, right? Like Foxtrot, Delta, all these other things. But Foxtrot 508 in that DLC is one of the clones that's developing a personality. So
Ah.
he's starting to it's a small section. Basically the scene plays out like this. You reach the command post. They're like, okay, we set up in this area without doors, and there's only just an elevator here. To which Foxtrot 508 is asking the command, why did we set up in an area without doors? It just kind of seems like a weird, dubious choice. And they keep telling him, what did we, Foxtrot 508, you are not permitted to speak. We had told you to stop ordering questions. He's like, yeah, but it just doesn't make sense. We're in a room without doors. Like, it's kind of a weird place to set up. And in the end, basically, he gets executed for having that personality. And at the time, I kind of felt like, especially when at the time, I was like, yeah, no, I felt like it sounds weird, but it felt like in the world at the time, I felt like I was like kind of an individual amongst people who were kind of out of the same mold. So it kind of grew on me. I was just like, yeah, I kind of relate to that because sometimes like I'll do stuff that's different, and people be like, "What? Why are you questioning it?" It's like, well, it doesn't make sense. I mean, that's why I'm saying and are talking about it. So that's why that name stuck because it's just a reference to that game
Oh.
and just that little scene.
Well, I think that's really awesome. Thank you for sharing. It's actually an honor to hear your tale. Hearing that and the next question, I always enjoy asking because one question I had at one point playing VRChat is like, why do people represent themselves the way they do? Why do you have the avatar? Why the name? Why did you choose that? And I always thought there's some sort
Hmm.
of, I guess, psychological thing, but I thought it was still cool to know. And I was curious, and now I enjoy hearing yours. And the next question, as I alluded to, the Avatarian, why do you use it? Why did you choose it? Is there anything about it that means anything to you?
Well,
Well, the one you
well,
entered
this
too.
wasn't the original one, but
Either
yeah,
one.
but at least well, with the way that Krieg is, I always kind of liked just the aesthetic of gas masks
Mm.
as well as just being from a background, a military background, of family. I always been exposed to it. I was just like, and then again learning history and and then looking at these is like, wow, I've always really liked just kind of being covered, you know? Other people will be like, oh, I like to show out and be flashy, or, like I'll have something that exposes me more. Me, I like being covered. Why? Because it always was really like nice to be covered in. Oh, dang chairs, I swear.
Oh, sorry to interrupt
But
you.
it to me, no, you're good. It's all good. But for me, I always liked being covered because it just makes me feel comfortable. It's
Mm,
just like yeah, like just like how I'd like to go out if like there was like something that like say it's raining. You don't want to go out when it's raining when it's like when you have like something that can get wet easily, right? You usually prep for it. You either got like an umbrella or a really good jacket and boots and or shoes that you can make sure that you're covered on. It's just feels comfortable. uh, I always liked feeling comfortable and protected like that. So that's kind of why I kind of like the aesthetic as well as just like, yeah, like if I was to rock anything, if I didn't scare anybody, this is probably what I'd go out in, minus, some aspects.
Fair.
But
Oh.
but it's I don't know, that's just kind of why I like the it's kind of like oh, what's a good one? Kind of like whenever I see the juggernauts like in like say Call of Duty, like the classic Modern Warfare, or even the newer ones. And that's another thing that it's so too. It's like I like just because I'm kind of a big guy, so I like being big, but I also like being protected. It's nice.
Mm,
It just feels nice. As far as my first model, is just my general model that I made because I'm the leader, and this is also just like a lore like a original lore thing that I came up with
mm,
because another tidbit about 40K, especially with the Necrons, they do have some Necrons that are affected by kind of like a disease, and they want to return back to flesh, right? So you can already tell how that goes. They basically flay whoever is alive and takes their skin, and what's that called? A la Leatherface style. They'll put their skin over them and whatever. I was like, look, if Space Marines can take trophies and if those guys can do it, yeah, it's heresy for the guard to do it, but hey, why can't I do it? And honestly, it looks pretty good to me.
mm.
I just kind of like the look of it too.
Oh.
But yeah, but this is just like in addition to like being protected, I also can be flashy and fancy too. Oh, and there's the chair.
Well, thank you so very much, Foxtrot, for letting us hear your tale and all about the Krieg and your avatar and your journey. It has been an absolute honor to hear it. Thank you so very much.
It's been an honor.
Oh,
Thank you.
no problem. And with that being said, if anyone in the audience wishes to reach out and find you or join the Krieg, where should they go?
All right. If you would like to join the Krieg, we do have our Discord as well as our YouTube channel as well as the TikTok that we run. The Discord link, I do have it somewhere in the world. I believe it's in. Oh, yeah, you can find it like right here.
Oh,
Or also we have our group within. You can find it as well.
oh, there it is, folks. Oh.
Yep. So if you ever wanted to die for the Emperor, we're here.
Oh, well, thank you so very much. And with that being said, this is the part we'll address you, the audience. If you enjoy these podcasts, if this is your first one, welcome to Metaverse Degen. We actually are now a network now. We're not just interviews. So we actually have a whole other D&D actual play podcast. If you're here for the roleplay, you may enjoy. Me and the rest of the crew kind of goof off and fuck and roll dice and act like idiots. So basically, that's basically all that is. So if you enjoyed that over on the YouTube channel, we have Hold My Own, also on Spotify as its own thing. Feel free to enjoy that. We would love to see you there at any of our Discord. We have a Discord, other stuff there if you're interested. But also, we'll address you guys with a question or a statement of some sort. And I think there's something that Buckshot here mentioned before. Never be afraid to stand out. I know in a world filled with everyone wants you to be the same, with the whole TikTok trends and us stuff, doing the same dances and wear the same things. Sometimes it's okay to be yourself. In a world, in this world, it's okay. No one's if you don't have if people don't like you, it's fine. As Raptor has said before many times, if you only just have one, it's worth doing. So if you just have one friend in this world, just for being yourself, it's better to have one quality friend than a bunch of nobodies. At least that's the way I see it. As the lesson I learned as a much younger little lion, I'd much rather have one friend who likes me for being an idiot than a bunch of people who, I don't know, just hang around. With that being said, enjoy the rest of your day, folks. Thanks for joining us.
God damn, this box drives. Left turn. Take another left turn. And another left turn. I'm doing a circle jerk. Whoops. I shouldn't have said that out loud. What the hell? Whee! Come here, box. Let's move. Nice.